Welcome, everybody, to Finding Your Purpose to Be. And today it's Spotlight, where we talk to purpose-driven entrepreneurs. And on today's show, we're talking to Mitchell Kraus of Total Intelligent Associates. And he's going to be talking about leveraging your wealth and to create the world you want, which sounds like a wonderful thing. Welcome, Mitchell. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, Jane. I'm Mitchell Kraus with Capital Intelligence Associates. I'm a wealth manager here in Santa Monica and been doing this for 27 years now, and really love working with people who believe their wealth isn't just their financial wealth, that they're trying to leverage that to create a better world and a better family and everything that they're interested in besides growing rich.
Oh, wow, Mitchell. What I like to do is to ask you how you got to where you are, how you found the purpose that is driving your business and creating your success. So could you tell us a little history about your company? That would be great. Thanks, Mitchell.
Of course. I graduated from college and found myself in a job in the life insurance industry. And I learned very quickly that I was good at selling life insurance, but my job was to sell it to a lot of people who didn't need it. And as a fourth generation in the financial services business, my father and I had a conversation, and I went to work at a financial planning firm, which I really found some great passion for, because I was selling life insurance to those who needed it, but really I was helping individuals create financial plans and reach those financial plans. And it was very fulfilling. But what I learned is in financial planning, the end all be all is sort of helping people towards that retirement. And I learned that a lot of people had other goals and needs besides just building wealth so they could retire someday. That I had clients and friends who not only wanted to take care of their nest egg in their portfolio, but they wanted to help their family. They wanted to raise their kids in a socially conscious way. They wanted to help their parents. More broadly, they wanted to help various organizations, whether it's their church or their local nonprofit, and that their wealth wasn't, in the financial planning sense, designed to really leverage for those causes. And then I have other clients who really cared about the world, whether it's political reasons or environmental reasons. And I've learned that through the years that people can leverage the wealth they have, their financial wealth, to help create, maybe it's social wealth, maybe it's community wealth, cultural wealth, leverage it. Sometimes I've helped clients build their physical, their health through their finances, and realizing where they could leverage that, or to even build more time. And it's really, people are so concentrated on their financial wealth and trying to build the biggest portfolio possible, that looking at those issues and using their financial wealth as a leverage might not build as much of a financial wealth, but will create a much more meaningful position for them.
So could you tell us a little bit more about socially, responsible investing and health investing? I've not heard of health investing for your health, but of course, we live in different countries, so maybe that's one of the reasons, but certainly the socially responsible investing. I know that, I have legacies in my will, but is there other opportunities where you work?
Yes, socially responsible investing, also known as ESG investing, so environmental, social, governance investing, is something that's been around for hundreds of years in some ways. And early on, a lot of the Presbyterians actually decided that they would not invest in companies that supported the slave trade. So it goes back that far, hundreds of years. And I think in a more modern approach to it, there's twofold. There's first asking yourself, if you inherited this company, would you feel good about the business they're in? would you want to be in this business? Would you buy out a business like this? And for some people, that's very much environmental issues. I wouldn't want an oil drill next door to me. It might be more on a religious issue. And I have clients who are very religious who will not invest in companies that support certain things that they believe are against their religion. More on a social matter, that we have lots of clients who do not invest in for-profit prisons, per se.
Mm-hmm.
Client who doesn't want to invest in GMOs. And it's not my duty to tell an individual what their purpose is and what their values are, but it's to work with them to figure out what their values are and make sure that their financial wealth matches those values. And invest in companies or invest in types of investments that match those values. As far as sort of physical wealth, when I talk about that, that's more of realizing that a lot of people work so hard to build these other wealth, they don't take care of their themselves and their own their physical nature, and they get into bad health. They're worrying about these things, and having these conversations and helping clients realize that everything is intertwined, that if you build millions of dollars, but then have all sorts of health problems and weigh 400 pounds, you're not creating the world you want to live in. And so how do you take some of the wealth you're building, and let's look at ways that maybe you can afford that physical therapist or physical trainer or whatever it might be to really round yourself out as a person and to really do what is needed to help you help yourself. And then that allows you to help the world.
Oh, wow. Didn't even think of that. I mean, I'm making plans for my retirement because I'm getting there soon. And there's always the possibility I have to go into a nursing home, but I didn't think of it. You can actually, invest in certain companies that will help you in the future, for certainly. So you're thinking of understanding your wealth beyond your bank account. The part about that is, of course, you're thinking, I would call you a holistic person, actually. What would you say? Holistic investing in a way.
Yes, I think holistic is a word that I've used and a few others in the industry that work like me have used to really look at the whole person. Any clients I meet with, before we start talking about their bank accounts and their investment accounts, we sort of talk about their values and their goals and understanding what they're trying to accomplish in life and what's important about money to them. And understanding that will allow us to figure out what needs to be done in these other areas as far as their financial wealth is concerned. A lot of my clients are more concerned with their family than maybe themselves. And how do we leverage that financial wealth to take care of their family? And for a lot of people, that's just paying for their kids' college. But if you look at surveys of the wealthiest in the United States, most really wealthy people would rather their kids inherit their values over their finances and their wealth, their financial wealth. So how do you teach your kids and your grandkids maybe your values and what's important to you, and how do you help them inherit that? And I think that's part of the holistic picture.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. And as I was mentioning, of course, I have a few legacies in my will, and I'm sure you speak a lot to your clients about leveraging their wealth in order to make the world better. And I was just wondering, so besides religious organizations, do you do a lot of research on charities to make sure that when they are, actually investing in things that it will actually help that charity? Or, you must have to do a lot of research on things other than the stock market?
You know, my expertise isn't picking the greatest charities.
Mhm.
I'm probably better at it than most people, because I do spend a lot of time thinking about it and guiding clients through how to do that, depending on the client and their needs. Most come to me with sort of causes they care about and that they really have a passion for, and they know who they want to give to, and I help them leverage those gifts. So when they're looking at how much they give, how much impact they have, how do they leverage it after taxes, how do they leverage it against their portfolio, making sure that there's enough money for the organization and for them. And when a client really wants to do research, there's a lot of organizations and consultants that we help them find and hire if they have a lot of wealth and they really want to um, beat in on a very specific cause and trying to find the best of those causes. I can find a lot of great places to start, but going down and interviewing charities on a big picture level, I'm pretty good at, and I've done that a lot.
Oh,
To get into the very specifics, that's not my expertise, and we believe that part of working with a client is no matter how smart I am, no matter how many designations I have an Ivy League degree. There's so much more I don't know than I do know. So working with other experts, finding the people who fit the needs of our individual clients that can bring in, whether it's tax help, whether it's, again, bringing in and helping them find that perfect charity to really do what they want to do, and really say, you give a little bit to a big charity, you're a drop in the ocean. You give a huge amount to a small charity, you can override them and overwhelm them. So it's finding that balance of what you're trying to do, how you're trying to do it. And there's so many great organizations out there. And the bigger questions I have with donors and clients is, what are you trying to accomplish? And and that's the hardest question for most people, because they don't really know that they want to help, here in Los Angeles, the homeless situation. But what does that mean? And asking people more and more questions, you get very, very different answers.
yeah, that's great. That's great because you get so detailed in down into getting the way to use the most return for their money, because that's obviously what I try and do is look at all my charities and make sure that they're using less money on the administration and more for their cause, and because I want to get a better return. So what, obviously the charity is how the money is, as they say, given away, but how do you get them to increase their returns? And you make a plan, so you create a legacy plan. What would you say in general you would say a legacy plan is for them? Because of course the charity is the money being given away and not being made, as they say.
We see, when we look at any client's legacy, as three main areas of concern. First is their immediate, is their family. How do you give money? How do you prepare the next generation for inheritance? How do you teach them your values? How do you take care of your parents or an older generation if that's what's needed? Two is philanthropic planning, and we have plans for each of these, and we sort of create sort of like a stoplight system. Here's green is what we're accomplishing now. Here's yellow, which is sort of the next steps along the way, and red is part of the long-term plan. And we try to leverage all three of the aspects to each individual, and making sure they're always making progress. So that second step with the charities, what we look at is sometimes to look at different assets and say, okay, these assets are good to give now. That by giving this stock you bought 30 years ago, now you can get a great tax deduction and not pay appreciation on that stock that made so much money. Or there's things to give later on. a lot of retirement plans, by the time they get to their heirs, might be worth pennies on the dollar. But if you give that to a charity upon death or while you're alive, um, the charity gets to use every single dollar. So looking at the different situations on what you're trying to do and weighing taxes, weighing immediate needs versus future needs, weighing all what you're trying to accomplish. We're always looking to refine and create a plan, a written plan of where you are now, and always trying to improve it. There's so many little aspects that it's impossible to set sail on a ship across the ocean to your destination and not make little changes along the way.
Mm.
The more little changes, because the world changes, the climate changes, there could be on that ship, there could be a storm ahead of you, but also people change over time. And creating, when I ask clients about investing with their values, most people I talk to about that say, this is the first time anybody's ever asked me about that. Let me think about that before I get back to you. And we create a plan to start based on them not knowing. But the more I ask them and the more they think about it, those plans change over time. So their investments will change over time. Their charities that they care about change over time. How they want to give and how much they're able to give changes over time. So it's a never-ending process that we love to create a financial plan with all this information, but it's almost out of date by the time we give it to a client because the world changes and they change. And that's sort of the fun part of what I do is helping clients define who they are and what their wealth can help them create and help them be.
Yeah, for sure. You have a long-term relationship, I know, with them, for sure, because I know we've had a long-term relationship with our financial investor, and you're right, things change. And so I'm going to ask the question about the pandemic and how you've managed to ease everybody's fears about what's been happening this year. And I think you have no problem doing that, I bet, so for sure.
Yes. It's been an interesting time, and here in the US, the market dropped huge amounts in March and then came right back. One of the things about what I do is that we are, by nature as humans, not rational.
Mm.
And my job is to help people make rational decisions in irrational times. And I like to describe it sort of, I know people who have driven home drunk and made it perfectly safe. And I've known people who've driven, hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2 and drove in the speed limit and gotten some horrendous accidents. Bad things happen if you do the right thing, and good things happen if you do the wrong thing. But more often than not, you do the right thing over and over again, you'll get better long-term results. And study after study says, you can't time the markets. You can't, figure out when it's going to be at the bottom and when it's going to be at the top. And the biggest thing for me to do for a lot of my clients as far as building their financial wealth is having them do what is very uncomfortable at the right time, because it's logically is the right thing to do and statistically the right thing to do, no matter how bad it feels. Every day it seems that a client comes to me and says, the market's going to fall apart. Let's sell out now. And I can tell you the couple of my biggest regret in the industry in my 20 something years is the couple of clients who sold out during the crash of 2008. Right. Who I told them, look, be patient. They sold out in 2009 generally. And those are the people who had really hard time recovering. Those who rode through it weren't happy, but they built that wealth from there, and it continues growing. And you just can't determine what that is and when the bottoms and the tops are. and writing through proves to be the right answer. But also with COVID, I have found that many of my clients have been more and more concerned about different causes. When you were talking about charities earlier, and things that they thought were important before, and maybe it was their university or something, in their community, their giving has changed, and they might be giving more to food banks, or they might be more worried about the homeless situation, or they might be more worried about medical research and various things that can change in this world. I know a lot of people, as they've seen their communities and the people they care about at the restaurants they go to,
Right.
or other causes, realize that social inequity is more of a cause that they care about, as they see their friends who are professionals doing just fine through the pandemic, but then see the others who are struggling to begin with struggle even more. So the causes they care about have changed through the pandemic, and it's been a very interesting time to work with people, revisit their plans, revisit their goals, both on a financial and on a community level, to relook at those items and try to keep them doing what is the rational thing to do, and not let their emotions sweep them away, which is real easy to do right now.
And I think that's also a matter of them trusting you. I think that your relationship is the most important part with them. And with this time, I know it's there are pulls to help others. So it's great that you can change their plans for them so quickly, and get them, if they're concerned, reassure them and all that kind of thing. I know we've had a few reassurances here, but yeah.
And just like the careful driver who gets in a car accident, I won't always do what I recommend to clients won't always work.
Mm-hmm.
They need to know that, but I'm going to do for them, and they need to know that they can trust me to do what looks to be the right thing. And if I keep on doing the right thing more often than not, over the long term, we'll get the right results. And that trust is there to keep them calm and to help them keep that, final, going back to the ship analogy, that keep them reminded their final destination. And there might be a storm along the way, and there might be winds, and there might be calm periods where the sails won't work. But if they keep the long view on their destination, I will help them get there.
Wow, that's a great analogy. And if I had that analogy with my financial investor, yes, they would be really reassuring me. Thank you, Mitchell. That's wonderful. You've given some great things to think about, because I don't think anyone's ever thought about values and trust and purpose and legacy and all this when they're thinking about money. So I hope that you will be successful and continue and remind people that they need to have legacy planning. I think that's probably the first thing they think about when they talk to you anyway. So is you always try to do that with them, Mitchell?
Yeah, I think, again, when we changed our practice about 10 years ago to look at legacy planning, our practice was very generic 10 years ago, and we sort of tried to be all things to all people. And I think where we are now is that we are great advisors for a select few who have these concerns. And I'm not the right person for a lot of people. And I don't try to be the right person for everybody. I really try to find people who have things that they care about. And I get referred to people who have lots of financial wealth but don't care about much anymore. And I generally tell them to go elsewhere. And I've some clients with less financial wealth but really want to change the world. And that's what's important to me, is working with people that I can take my skill set and really make a huge difference to them and really to those they care about and the causes they care about.
Well, I'm so pleased that you came on today, Mitchell, and that we could talk about purpose and value and legacy. I'm so pleased because sometimes it's one thing you don't think about with finances, and so I'd like to thank you for coming on, and I'll be putting up your information for anyone who's interested at the end of the call. So thank you, Mitchell. It's been great, and you've made me hopeful for my planning. I didn't even think about you know what, maybe I should actually put some of my whale charities into my planning rather than just sticking them in my will. So thank you very much, Mitchell.
Well, yeah, no, thank you, Jane. It's been, I always love talking about this with people, and even if they're not the right clients, sometimes it gets them started down a road. And I've gotten calls years later saying, or I've run into people at a social event saying, I thought you were a little off when I first met you, but I thought about what you had to say, and I really get that. And one of the great things about giving now instead of just in your will is you get to see change made from you. And not everybody can afford to give immediately, but if you can give a little bit and see the change you can make, it's just so much nicer than knowing that all those changes will be made after you're gone, which is still very important.
Thank you, Mitchell. This has been Finding Your Purpose TV, and thank you very much, Mitchell Kraus, for coming on today. And I'll be showing information on how to contact you in a minute. Thank you, Mitchell.
Thank you, Jane.
For financial planning with thoughtful outcomes because it's your legacy, you can contact Mitchell at mkraus, MKRAUS, at CAPINTELLIAGENCE, or capintelligence.com, or Capital Intelligence Associates